The boy's stare hit the rancher like a fist. No sound, no warning. Just those dark eyes fixed on him as if they had been waiting. The rancher froze in place, hands still on the rail of the auction pen, breath caught halfway. The auctioneer kept talking, voice sharp and echoing, but the rancher barely heard a thing. All he saw was that boy and the small girl clinging to his shirt. "You bidding or not?" the auctioneer snapped. The rancher didn't answer. The boy kept staring. Not scared. Not lost. Just watching him with a strange calm, like he knew something. The rancher felt his throat tighten. Folks in the crowd whispered behind him. "That one's trouble. Both of them look half-starved. Whoever buys them is desperate or stupid." The girl pressed closer to the boy, eyes wide, knuckles white in his shirt. The boy didn't blink. The auctioneer slammed his stick on the post. "Last call." The rancher spoke before he even realized it. "I'll take them." Gasps rose around him. The auctioneer blinked. "Both?" "Yes." "You sure?" The man leaned forward. "Ain't no refunds." "I said yes." The moment the words left his mouth, the rancher felt something shift inside him, like a door he didn't mean to open had swung wide. The auctioneer signaled the clerk. Papers rustled. The crowd murmured again. The rancher stepped toward the children. The girl flinched. The boy didn't move. When the rancher crouched down, the boy leaned in a little, almost curious. "What's your name, son?" the rancher asked quietly. The boy whispered something. The rancher froze again. "What did you say?" The boy repeated it, soft as dust. It was a name the rancher hadn't heard spoken in months. A name he kept buried under silence. His wife's name. The one carved on the stone behind the barn. The rancher felt the ground tilt under him. "Don't say that," he muttered. The boy only stared. A hush fell over the whole auction yard. Even the auctioneer stopped shuffling papers. The girl tugged the boy's sleeve like she wanted him to stop talking. "Who told you that?" the rancher whispered. The boy looked down. "She did." The rancher's chest tightened so hard it hurt. He jerked upright, turned toward the crowd, saw the confused faces. The auctioneer cleared his throat, acting like nothing strange had happened. "You paid. They're yours now. Go on." The rancher grabbed both children gently but firmly by the hands. The girl trembled. The boy stayed calm, still watching him with that eerie knowing look. The rancher didn't look back at the crowd. He just pulled the children off the stage, boots striking the old boards with a hard rhythm. As they stepped into the open yard, the wind hit cold across his face, but the rancher barely felt it. His grip tightened on the children's hands. He didn't know why he had bought them. He didn't know what the boy meant. All he knew was that something old had just cracked open inside him. And he wasn't ready for what might step out of it. He kept walking, heart pounding, unsure if he feared the children or the memories they stirred. Either way, he knew nothing in his quiet life would stay untouched now, ever. His boots scraped the gravel as he pulled the boy aside, the girl stumbling behind them while the noise of the auction faded into a low hum. The rancher tightened his grip on the boy's arm and crouched, breath sharp and uneven. "Why'd you say that?" he asked, voice low enough that only the children could hear. The boy didn't answer. He just looked up at him with the same strange calm he'd shown on stage, like nothing about this moment frightened him at all. "Why'd you say her name?" the rancher pressed. "Speak up." The boy shook his head. "I didn't." The rancher leaned in closer, jaw tightening. "You did." The boy's lips barely moved. "She told me." The girl grabbed the boy's sleeve and tried to pull him away from the rancher, her eyes jumpy and wide, scanning the yard like she expected someone to come running out of the shadows. "Who's after you?" the rancher asked. The girl shook her head fast, almost panicked. "We ain't supposed to say." The rancher noticed the bruises then, faint rings around both children's wrists, matching marks like they'd been held too tight for too long. He reached toward the boy's hand, but the child flinched back like the touch burned. "Who did that to you?" the rancher asked. No answer. Just those eyes. Just the girl clinging tighter like the world pressed in on her. He stood, rubbing his forehead, trying to find some kind of sense in the boy's strange words, the bruises, the fear in the girl's movements. Nothing added up. Nothing settled. "Come on," he said finally. His voice shook more than he wanted. "You're coming with me." The girl looked like she wanted to run, but the boy stepped forward first, almost guiding her with a slight tug of his hand. The rancher didn't miss how protective he seemed, how steady he walked despite everything. They moved across the yard, past the empty pens and broken boards, toward the small wagon waiting at the edge of the lot. The rancher helped the girl climb in, then lifted the boy beside her. The boy looked at him again, that same quiet stare that felt too deep for his age. The rancher swallowed hard, forcing himself not to look away. "No more names," the rancher muttered. "Not a word." The boy nodded once, though something in his eyes said the silence wouldn't last. The rancher climbed into the wagon, hands trembling against the reins. As the wheels creaked forward, he felt the weight of the children beside him, two strangers who somehow carried pieces of a past he tried to bury. He didn't understand any of it yet. He only knew the road ahead had already changed. Behind them, the auction yard settled into uneasy chatter, but the rancher kept his eyes ahead, refusing to look back. The girl hugged her knees, shivering even though the air was warm. The boy leaned slightly toward him, almost like he wanted to speak but didn't dare. The rancher felt that stare again, heavy on his shoulder. "Don't," he whispered without turning. The boy stayed quiet. The wagon rolled past the last fence post, leaving the yard behind. The rancher took a slow breath, steadying himself, but the tremor in his hands refused to stop. He felt the children watching him still there. The wagon wheels squeaked under the weight as the rancher guided the horse down the narrow road, the boards rattling in uneven rhythm. The children sat close together, their shoulders touching, the girl half hidden behind the boy's arm. The rancher kept glancing at them, unable to shake the tension tightening his chest. Every time he looked away, he felt their eyes on him, quiet and watchful. The road stretched long and empty ahead, but the wagon felt crowded with things unsaid. A minute passed, then another, nothing but the clatter of wheels and the snap of reins. The girl finally leaned into the boy, whispering something he didn't catch. The boy didn't answer. He just stared at the rancher's hands, studying every twitch like it meant something. Then, soft and sudden, the boy began humming. The rancher's grip slipped. That tune. That soft, slow pattern. That lullaby only one person ever sang in that exact broken rhythm. His wife's voice lived inside that melody. The rancher yanked the reins so hard the horse reared. The wagon lurched. The girl gasped and grabbed the side. "Stop that," the rancher snapped, voice cracking. "Stop humming." The boy went silent, blinking like he didn't understand what he had done wrong. "Who taught you that song?" the rancher demanded. "Tell me." The boy lowered his gaze. "I just know it." "That's not an answer." The rancher leaned closer. "Who taught you?" The girl tugged the boy's shirt. "Don't talk," she whispered. The rancher felt anger and fear twist together inside him. "You're gonna tell me," he said. The boy finally lifted his head. She did. The rancher felt the world tilt again. "Don't lie to me." "I'm not." "She's gone." The boy looked at him with something soft and steady, like pity. "She isn't." The rancher slammed the reins again, pushing the wagon forward. The wheels rattled loud now, hitting every rut in the road. He didn't look at the children anymore. He didn't want to see that look, that impossible certainty. The girl shifted, eyes scanning behind them again, body tense and small. "They'll come for us," she whispered. The rancher didn't turn. "Who?" "Them." Her voice shook. "They always come." The boy nodded once. "Soon." The rancher frowned and finally looked back over his shoulder. A slow chill slid down his spine. Far down the road behind them, dust rose in steady plumes. Horses. Riders. Moving too slow to be casual, too steady to be friendly. Sheriff's men. The rancher stiffened. Why would they be coming for you too? The boy didn't answer. The girl flinched from the drifting dust cloud as if she knew exactly who was hidden inside it. The rancher cursed under his breath. Instinct took over. He shifted in the seat and pulled the children closer behind him, forming a small barrier with his own body. "Hold on," he muttered. He flicked the reins hard. The wagon jumped forward, wheels screaming against the dirt. The girl wrapped her arms around her knees. The boy braced one hand on the seat, steady as ever. The dust behind them thickened. The riders began closing in. The rancher felt sweat prick along his neck. "Why are they after you?" he asked again, breath tight. "We didn't do nothing," the girl said. "We just left." The boy added quietly, "They don't like when someone leaves." The rancher didn't like the sound of that. Didn't like the tone. Didn't like the riders closing in behind them. He pushed the horse harder. The wagon jerked through a bend in the road. Up ahead, his long dirt path stretched toward home. He turned sharply into it, gripping the reins and praying the wheels held. The wagon heaved to the side as it cut through the turn, dust rising behind them in a cloud thick enough to swallow the road whole. The door swung open so hard it hit the wall, sending a cloud of dust lifting into the dim air. The rancher ushered the children inside fast, shutting the door behind them with a firm shove. The house stood quiet, heavy with the stillness he'd lived with for months. The girl paused near the threshold, eyes wide, as if the silence itself frightened her. The boy stepped forward slowly, gaze drifting across the room like he was searching for something he remembered. The rancher felt that same unease rise again, low and persistent. He tried to shake it off as he bolted the door, but the edges of his hands trembled. The boy walked straight toward the fireplace mantel, where a framed photograph leaned slightly crooked. The rancher stiffened. Before he could stop him, the boy reached up and touched the glass lightly with 2 fingers, tracing the face in the photo. "She still cries here," the boy whispered. The rancher moved fast, grabbing the boy's wrist before the girl even realized he was across the room. "Don't touch that," the rancher said. His voice came out rough, harsher than he meant. The boy looked up at him, not scared, not angry, just calm in a way that made everything inside the rancher twist. "What did you say?" the rancher asked. "Nothing." "You're lying." The girl pulled him back gently. "Please don't," she whispered. "We didn't mean nothing." The rancher stepped back and ran a hand through his hair, trying to steady himself, but the air in the house felt tight, pressing against his chest. The girl crept toward the old dining table and crawled beneath it, folding herself into the shadows. When the rancher looked at her, she shook her head fast. "Too many windows," she whispered. He followed her glance toward the wide front windows, thin curtains half drawn. "Ain't nobody out there," he said. "There will be," she murmured. The rancher looked out through the curtain anyway, pressing 2 fingers to the fabric. His stomach dropped. A horse and rider sat at the property line. Not moving. Not calling out. Just watching. Sheriff's patrol. The same dark coats. The same posture. They didn't cross the fence. They didn't need to. They just waited. The rancher stepped away from the window, jaw tight. "That why you're scared of windows?" The girl wrapped her arms around her legs. "They come fast when they see us." "Who?" "All of them," she whispered. "The ones who count heads. The ones who check the books." The rancher didn't understand the words, but he understood fear. The boy moved quietly across the room and sat on the edge of the hearth, like he'd done it 100 times before. The rancher hated how natural it looked. He hated the way the boy's eyes followed the shape of the room like he knew it bone deep. "You been here before?" the rancher asked. The boy shook his head. "No, feels like you have. Feels like she's here, the boy said softly. The rancher's breath caught in his throat. He wanted to shout. He wanted to shake the boy until the truth fell out of him. But nothing about this moment felt steady. The patrol rider outside hadn't moved an inch. The girl stared at the floor, rocking ever so slightly. The rancher walked to the door and slid the first wooden bar into place, then the second, then the old iron latch he hadn't touched since the night he buried his wife. His movements were sharp, almost frantic. His voice cracked as he said, "Nobody's getting in here." The house settled into a thick, unbroken quiet. The rancher sat down by the dead fireplace with the children, the air heavy with memory and fear. The boy leaned his head slightly toward the mantel again, eyes soft, like listening for something. The girl stayed tucked near his side, trembling every few breaths. The rancher placed a hand on the cold stone beside him, steadying himself against a house that suddenly felt unfamiliar, filled with ghosts he wasn't ready to name. The three of them sat in that silence, each holding something they couldn't explain, waiting for whatever would come next. The rancher struck the match with a sharp scrape, the sound snapping through the dark like a warning. The tiny flame bloomed at the tip, soft and gold, barely lighting his fingers. Before he could move it toward the hearth, both children screamed. Not loud. Not wild. Sharp, terrified, breaking from their chests like something instinctive. "Don't," the girl cried. "Put it out." The boy lunged forward and grabbed the rancher's wrist with surprising strength. The rancher jerked back, shocked. "What's wrong with you two?" he snapped. "It's just a fire." "No," the girl whispered, breath shaking. "Not here. Not now." The boy pulled the rancher's hand down until the match hovered near the floor. "Someone will see," he said. The rancher stared at him, stunned by the certainty in the boy's voice. "See what?" "It's my house." "He watches light," the boy said. "He always sees light." The rancher felt a cold pressure settle at the base of his spine. "Who are you talking about?" "Don't make us say it," the girl murmured. "You're saying something already," the rancher replied. "Spit it out." "No," the boy said quietly. His fingers tightened around the rancher's wrist. "Some names you don't say." The rancher shook him off, frustration rising like heat. The match burned lower, curling toward his fingers. "You're gonna tell me," the rancher said. "Who's looking for you?" The girl hid her face against her knees. "Not who," she whispered. "What he owns." The rancher felt confused anger flare. "What does that mean?" The girl didn't answer. Her shoulders trembled. The boy looked away, jaw clenched like he expected a blow. The match singed the rancher's skin. He hissed and dropped it. The flame died the moment it hit the floorboard, leaving the room in thick, total darkness. The girl whimpered. The boy covered her with his arm. The rancher exhaled hard. "Fine," he muttered. "We'll sit in the dark." "Good," the boy said. His voice was so steady it made the rancher's stomach twist. "Safer." "For who?" the rancher asked. "Us," the girl whispered. "You too." The rancher rubbed the burn on his finger. "I don't need protecting." "She thought you did," the boy murmured. The rancher froze. "Don't start that again." "It's true." "You don't know a damn thing about her." The boy didn't argue. He didn't have to. The silence between them was thick with something unsaid. The rancher's pulse thudded in his ears. He wanted to light another match just to see the children's faces, but fear crept in before he reached for the box again. He hated that feeling. He wasn't scared of anything in years. The girl shifted closer to the boy, whispering something under her breath. The rancher only caught a piece of it. "Ledger, ledger," he narrowed his eyes in the dark. "Ledger?" The boy shook his head fast. "Forget it." "No," the rancher said. "I heard you." The girl sniffed, voice trembling. "The man with the ledger. He keeps names. Numbers. He owns everything. Including us, the boy added. The rancher felt a slow, cold rage build in his chest. You saying he works with the sheriff? Neither child answered, but their silence spoke loud. The rancher leaned back against the cold stone of the fireplace, mind racing. Illegal. All of it. That auction wasn't what it claimed to be. It wasn't lawful. It wasn't safe. And by bringing these children here, he had stepped straight into someone else's shadows. The sudden knock hit the door like a gunshot, loud and hollow and close enough to make the girl scream. The boy grabbed her hand. The rancher's heart kicked hard in his chest. Another knock followed. Then another. Someone stood on the other side of his door. And they weren't being patient. The knock hit again, harder this time, rattling the hinges and cutting through the dark like a warning no one could ignore. The rancher moved fast, pressing a finger to his lips as he leaned toward the children. Hide, he whispered. Now. The girl crawled beneath the table, pulling her knees tight to her chest. The boy slipped behind the old grain barrel near the corner, his breathing steady even as fear creased his face. Another knock. Slow. Heavy. Patient. The rancher stepped toward the door, keeping his body angled to block any glimpse inside. He forced his voice steady. Who's there? A smooth, practiced voice answered. Evening. Sheriff sent me to check on things. Routine, you know. Routine. The rancher didn't believe that for a second. It's late. That's when trouble happens, the man replied. Mind if I step in? The rancher hesitated, then lifted the latch halfway. A sliver of moonlight fell across a long face, neatly combed hair, and eyes too calm to trust. The man smiled. Didn't mean to wake you. You didn't, the rancher said. What do you want? The ledger man, though he hadn't given his name, tilted his head like he was studying a puzzle. Heard you took in 2 orphans today. The rancher felt his muscles tense. News travels fast. In places like this, it should. The man pushed gently on the door, and the rancher stepped back just enough for him to enter. The ledger man scanned the dark room with a polite smile that felt like a blade. You alone? Always, the rancher said. Shame, the man answered. House this size ought to be filled. The rancher didn't respond. The ledger man walked slowly, every step deliberate. Mind if I ask where the children went after the auction? Folks said you bought them. They're asleep, the rancher said quickly. Long day. I imagine. The ledger man paused near the fireplace, looking at the cold stone, then let his eyes drift toward the shadows. Boy or girl awake enough to answer a question or two? Not tonight. Must be a reason you bought them. Didn't like seeing them stand there, the rancher said. That's all. The ledger man smiled wider. Kindness is rare. He reached into his coat, pulled out a small black notebook, and flipped it open casually. Names? I don't know them yet. You didn't ask? No, the ledger man tapped his pen against the page. Strange thing, not knowing the names of children you brought home. The rancher swallowed. I'll learn them tomorrow. The man nodded, though his eyes said he didn't believe a word. Silence settled for a long moment. Then, softly, from behind the grain barrel, the boy whispered the rancher's wife's name. Just once. Barely audible. But enough. The ledger man's head snapped toward the sound. His face tightened. That's a curious name, he said slowly. Haven't heard it spoken in years. The rancher moved fast, stepping between the man and the barrel. I told you, he said, voice steady, they're asleep. The ledger man watched him carefully, then closed his notebook with a soft snap. You've had a long night, he said. I won't keep you. He walked to the door, pausing before stepping out. If you see anything unusual, you tell the sheriff. This land's been holding secrets too long. The rancher didn't answer. The ledger man stepped into the night and pulled the door shut behind him. The rancher threw the bolts fast, chest rising and falling as if he'd run miles. Only when everything was locked did he whisper, "Come out." The boy emerged first. The girl followed. The rancher knelt in front of them, breath trembling. "We're in trouble now," he said quietly. "Worse than before." The house seemed to listen, every beam holding its breath. The rancher didn't move. He just felt the weight of what he'd stepped into, pressing down hard. The night outside thickened. And inside, all three waited for whatever came next. The lantern shook in the rancher's hand as he turned back toward the children. The flame inside wavered, throwing thin, trembling light across their faces. The boy stood still, eyes lowered, while the girl clung to his sleeve like she needed him to stay upright. The rancher's voice cracked. "Stop saying her name." The boy didn't lift his head. "I didn't mean to." "You said it twice tonight," the rancher snapped. "Twice. In this house." The girl squeezed the boy's arm, whispering something he didn't answer. The rancher stepped closer, anger and fear twisted so tight inside him he couldn't separate the two. "Why?" he asked. "Why say that name? You shouldn't know it." "Nobody should." The boy finally looked up. His eyes were glassy, frightened now, but still holding that strange softness that made the rancher feel unsteady. "She tells me," the boy murmured. "In dreams." The rancher felt the room tilt, the air tightening around him. "Don't lie to me." "I'm not." The boy's voice shook. "She talks when it's dark. When it's cold. When you're sad." "Enough," the rancher said, louder than he meant. The girl flinched. The rancher took a slow breath, trying to steady himself, but his hand still trembled around the lantern. "You don't know anything about her," he said. "You don't know her voice. You don't know her name. You don't know this house." "He dreams what she dreams," the girl whispered suddenly. Her voice was small, but it hit the rancher hard. "What did you say?" he asked. The girl hid half her face behind the boy's shoulder. "He dreams things," she whispered. "Things that ain't ours." The rancher knelt down in front of them, lantern lighting the curve of their frightened expressions. "Look at me," he said. The boy lifted his head slowly. The rancher stared into those two dark, two old eyes. "Tell me the truth." "I am," the boy whispered. "She says your name." The rancher felt something break open inside him. "How would you know her voice?" "I don't," the boy said quickly. "Not like she was. More like she feels." "Feels?" The rancher shook his head. "That doesn't make sense." "I can't stop it," the boy said. "When I sleep, she's there. Not close. Not far. Just there. Stop. She's sad," the boy continued. "She's looking for you." The girl grabbed his hand hard. "Don't say more," she begged. The rancher's breath stuttered. The lantern shook again, flame flickering higher. He set it down before he dropped it. "Why you?" he whispered. "Why would she talk to you?" The boy wiped his nose on his sleeve. "Because you're alone," he said. The rancher felt the words hit like a punch. "That's not an answer." The boy's chin trembled. "She says you don't sleep." The rancher went still. "She says you sit by the grave," the boy added. "She says you talk to the stone because you don't know how to talk to people." The rancher's breath left him. His knees felt weak, and he sat back on the cold floorboards. The children watched him carefully, the girl leaning into the boy's side for warmth. The rancher pressed a hand to his eyes, trying to steady the storm rolling through him. "You're a child," he whispered. "You can't know those things." "I don't want to," the boy said. "But she pushes them in." "You're dreaming," the rancher said weakly. "Just dreams." The boy shook his head. "Dreams don't hurt this much." The rancher looked up at them, lantern light trembling across all three faces. he suddenly felt small in his own home, like the walls knew something he didn't. The boy reached out as if to comfort him, but the rancher drew back, unsure of everything except the pounding in his chest. The lantern flickered hard, throwing shadows across the room. The rancher stared at the boy, breath unsteady, feeling the world shift under him one more time, heavier than before, colder than the dark around them. The rancher stepped outside with the lantern held low, its flickering glow barely reaching the edge of the porch. The night air carried a cold that didn't belong to the season, a stillness that settled over the land like a warning. The children followed him without a word, their steps soft, their breaths shallow. The boy kept close to the rancher's side, while the girl stayed a step behind, glancing into the dark as though expecting something to jump out. "Stay near me," the rancher muttered. "Both of you." The boy nodded. The girl clutched her own elbows, shoulders tight. They walked past the barn, around the old wooden fencing, toward the far corner where the land dipped. The rancher lifted the lantern higher. The small grave marker stood where it always had, simple and lonely, catching the weak light. The rancher's chest tightened when he saw it. The children slowed. The boy looked at the marker like he'd seen it before. The girl looked like she wished she hadn't. "Why are we here?" she whispered. "To end this," the rancher said quietly. "Once and for all." The boy moved ahead of him and knelt beside the grave without waiting to be told. His fingers brushed the dirt, slow and gentle. His head bowed. "She's cold," he whispered. The rancher stiffened. "Don't say that." "But she listens," the boy added. "Always." The girl pressed close to the rancher's leg. "We shouldn't stay long," she murmured. "Someone's coming." "Nobody followed us," the rancher said, though uncertainty slipped into his voice. "I checked." "Not them," the girl whispered. "Others." The rancher forced himself to look at the grave, to breathe through the weight pressing against his ribs. Memories crept up the back of his mind, sharp and unwelcome, the nights he sat here alone, the mornings he spoke to a stone because it was the only thing left that knew him. He knelt beside the boy, forcing calm into his shaking hands. "Listen to me," he said softly. "You don't know her. You don't know anything about her." The boy's fingers curled into the dirt. "She cries for you," he said. "She doesn't want you to hurt alone." The rancher closed his eyes. The words hit too deep, too fast. "How?" he whispered. "How could you know that?" The boy didn't answer. The girl looked into the darkness around the barn. "We have to go," she said. "Now." The rancher opened his eyes. "Why?" "Because they're close," she whispered. "I feel them." The rancher frowned, listening hard. The night seemed too still, too flat. Then he heard it. A faint snap of a branch. Then another. Slow. Measured. Coming from the line of trees beyond the grave. The rancher stood fast, pulling the children to him. "Stay behind me." The boy rose without protest. The girl grabbed his shirt, almost trembling. The rancher lifted the lantern high, its flame shuddering against the cold air. "Who's out there?" he called. No answer. Another branch cracked. Closer. The rancher stepped back, shielding the children with his body. "We're leaving," he whispered. "Keep your heads down." The boy grabbed his hand. The girl held onto his coat. They moved fast toward the barn, feet crunching softly across the dirt. Behind them, the branches snapped again, louder now, like footsteps trying not to be heard. The rancher didn't look back. He didn't need to. Whatever waited in those trees wasn't friendly, and it wasn't far. They reached the far side of the barn when the lantern flickered hard, nearly going out. The girl gasped. The boy whispered, "He's looking." The rancher tightened his grip on them and forced the lantern forward, pushing through the dark toward the house. Behind them, another branch cracked, sharp, heavy, closing in. The rancher didn't stop. Not now. Not with whatever hunted them stepping out from the trees. The rancher didn't wait for another sound. He grabbed both children, one hand on each small shoulder, and ran. The dark trees loomed on either side as he pushed them forward, feet pounding the cold ground. The girl gasped with every step, her breath sharp and frightened. The boy stayed quiet, legs moving fast to keep up. Branches whipped the rancher's coat. The lantern swung wildly in his hand, its light slicing through the dark in frantic flashes. "Why them?" the rancher shouted as they ran. "Why are they after you?" The boy's voice came between breaths. "He needs us back." "For what?" The boy hesitated, stumbling slightly. "Numbers." The rancher didn't understand, but the fear in the boy's voice pushed him faster. The girl cried out, "They count us. They mark us. They don't let us go." The rancher felt fury burn in his chest. "Nobody's taking you," he said. "Not now. Not ever." Behind them, footsteps crashed through the brush, more than one set, heavy and sure. Men who knew how to track. Men used to chasing. The rancher ducked under a low branch, pulling the children with him. "Stay close," he said. "Don't fall behind." The boy pointed through the trees. "Not that way. He'll see us there." "Who?" the rancher asked. "Ledger man," the girl whispered. "He watches everything. He owns the roads." The rancher veered left, trusting instinct more than sense now. The ground sloped downward, the trees thinning just enough to let moonlight spill onto an old clearing. They burst into it, breaths ragged. The rancher lifted the lantern, scanning the open space fast. His heart slammed against his ribs when he spotted it, a stone circle, broken and old, surrounding the jagged edge of a long-abandoned well. The girl yanked the boy back. "No. Not there." "It's cover," the rancher said, dragging them forward. "It's a trap," the girl cried. "Everything here is a trap." Another branch cracked behind them. "Closer." The rancher didn't argue. He ran toward the well anyway, pulling the children through thick grass and broken stones. When they reached the edge, the rancher crouched low, lowering the lantern behind the small wall. The boy slipped down first, then the girl, both trying to press into the shadows. The rancher crouched beside them, chest heaving as he listened. Footsteps reached the clearing. Then stopped. Voices followed. "Tracks end here. Lights close." He couldn't have gotten far. The rancher pulled the children tighter behind him. The girl buried her face in his coat, trembling. The boy whispered something so soft it barely counted as sound. "Don't breathe loud," he murmured. The rancher forced his breath slow, careful. The men moved through the clearing, their boots crushing dry grass, their murmured words floating like fog. "Ledger man won't like hearing we lost M. He wants the boy most. Girl too. She knows things." The rancher felt his stomach twist. The boy's hand found his sleeve and gripped tight. "They always take us back," the boy whispered. "Not tonight," the rancher said. He shifted his weight, ready to stand if he had to. The voices drew closer. Boots scraped against stone. Someone paused right beside the well. The rancher closed his eyes, ready for the worst. But after a long moment, a voice said, "Tracks go toward the west trees. Spread out." The footsteps drifted away, fading into the dark, until the clearing fell still again. The rancher didn't move. Not until the last sound disappeared. Only then did he lift the lantern slightly, scanning the empty clearing. The children clung to him, breaths shaking. He knew they weren't safe. Not by a long shot. But they'd survived these few minutes. And survival, right now, was everything. As he tightened his grip on them, the rancher looked toward the path home. He didn't see home. He saw a fight coming. One he couldn't outrun. The rancher lowered the children behind the broken stone wall surrounding the old well, his lantern dimmed to a faint glow. The night pressed close, thick and cold, swallowing their breaths. The girl crouched low, hugging her knees, hair falling over her face. The boy leaned against the stones, eyes fixed on the dark trees as if expecting them to breathe. The rancher kept one hand on the lantern and the other on the ground, steadying himself. "Stay down," he whispered. "Both of you." The boy nodded. The girl trembled. The rancher lifted the lantern just enough to see their faces. The fear there twisted something deep inside him. He swallowed hard. "Tell me the truth," he whispered. "All of it. Why do they want you?" The boy hesitated, glancing at the girl before speaking. "We know things." "What things?" The boy's eyes softened, heavy with something too old for a child. "Things we heard. Things he keeps." "The ledger man?" The boy nodded. "He writes everything down. Who comes? Who goes? Who belongs? Who disappears?" The rancher felt the cold dig into his spine. "Why you too?" "We heard him talking," the girl whispered. "In the back room. The room with the metal door." The rancher didn't like the sound of that. He didn't like the way her voice cracked either. "He said names," the boy added. "A list." "What kind of list?" The boy looked at him long, as if the answer might break something. "People he sold." The girl buried her face in her sleeves. The rancher's jaw tightened. "You're telling me he sold children?" "Not just children," the boy said. "Anyone who didn't matter." The rancher felt the words hit like a hammer. "Then why mention my wife?" The girl jerked her head up, startled. "Your wife?" "He said her name," the rancher muttered. "Tonight. Twice." The boy looked down at the dirt. "That wasn't him," he said softly. "That was me." "Why?" the rancher demanded. "Why say her name?" The boy's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because she told me something." "Stop it," the rancher snapped. "She's gone." "But she left something behind," the boy said. "Something she wanted you to know." The rancher leaned forward, his breath caught. "What are you talking about?" The boy hesitated, then whispered a small, fragile secret, one only the rancher's wife could have known. The rancher went still. Every muscle locked. Even the wind seemed to stop. "How do you know that?" he whispered. "Tell me how." The boy shook his head. "I heard it. When I dream." "Dreams don't work like that." "These do," the boy said. "They hurt." The girl reached for his arm. "Please don't make him say more." The rancher stared at them, heart pounding so loud it felt like footsteps inside his chest. Then, suddenly, real footsteps broke through the trees. Close. Heavy. Searching. He froze, lifting the lantern just enough to see shadows shifting beyond the clearing. The girl held her breath. The boy pressed closer to the stones. The rancher whispered, "Quiet." Two voices drifted through the trees, muffled but clear enough. "Check the west side. He's around here somewhere." The rancher pressed a hand over the lantern, dimming it more. The night grew tighter, the danger sharper. He leaned close to the children. "When I say run," he murmured, "you run behind me. Understand?" The girl nodded. The boy whispered, "You can't outrun him." "Watch me try," the rancher said. The voices moved closer. Branches cracked. The rancher felt something settle inside him, fear, grief, anger, all twisting into a single, steady resolve. He stood. Slow. Quiet. The lantern in his hand cast a low circle of trembling light. He stepped out from behind the stone wall, into the open clearing, into the moonlight. Ready to face whatever came. The sheriff stepped into the clearing like he owned every shadow in it. His coat hung heavy, his boots sinking into the grass with slow, deliberate weight. The rancher stood in the moonlight, lantern held low, jaw tight. Both men stared at each other as if the years between them were a fence they'd never agreed on. The sheriff lifted one brow. Didn't expect to find you out here. Didn't expect you to be hunting kids, the rancher replied. The sheriff tilted his head. Kids go missing all the time. Not these ones. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. You hiding something? Plenty. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of damp earth from the trees. The sheriff rested his hand casually on his belt. You and I don't have to make this ugly, he said. Hand over the children. Ledger man needs them back. The rancher stiffened. That man needs a cell. The sheriff laughed once, short and cold. You think you know what's happening here? The rancher took a step forward. I know enough. The sheriff studied him in silence, then sighed. Your wife, he said softly. She knew too much. The rancher's heartbeat stumbled. Don't talk about her. The sheriff shrugged. Truth's truth. She was poking around where she didn't belong. Ledger man warned her. She never spoke to that snake. Oh, she did, the sheriff said. Day before she died. Wanted to report him. Wanted to bring in the feds. The rancher's throat tightened. You're lying. The sheriff's eyes hardened. She was going to ruin everything we built. Couldn't let that happen. The words sank deep. Heavy. Bitter. What did you do? The rancher whispered. The sheriff didn't flinch. She didn't listen. She pushed. She asked wrong questions. The rancher's voice broke. So you killed her. The sheriff's jaw twitched. She forced my hand. The rancher felt something inside him crack. A slow, cold break that traveled through his ribs. You covered it up, he said. Called it an accident. The sheriff didn't deny it. Ledger man has plans, he replied. He keeps the town running. Keeps people in line. Things stay clean when no one asks questions. She asked questions. Too many. The rancher stepped closer, fists trembling. And those kids? The sheriff's mouth pulled into a thin line. They heard things. Saw things. They belong to Ledger man now. Same as half this town. Not anymore, the rancher said. You're not taking them. You think you can stop me? The rancher nodded once. The sheriff scoffed. You're one man. That's enough. The sheriff's hand moved first, reaching for his sidearm, but the rancher was closer. He slammed into him with full force, knocking the gun loose. The sheriff grunted as they fell into the dirt, wrestling in a flurry of fists and breath. You don't understand what you're fighting, the sheriff growled, gripping the rancher's coat. Ledger man owns everything. Not tonight, the rancher spat. He drove his fist into the sheriff's jaw. The man collapsed onto his back, dazed. The rancher rose, chest burning, and kicked the sheriff's gun far into the weeds. The sheriff groaned, rolling to his side. You're dead, he rasped. You and those brats. The rancher stared down at him, breath shaking, fury and grief twisting together. You took her from me. The sheriff coughed, spitting blood. Should have stayed quiet. The rancher knelt, grabbed the sheriff's collar, and hissed, I won't make that mistake. He released him and stood, leaving the sheriff bleeding but breathing. No more words. No more hesitation. He turned and ran toward the well, toward the children, toward the only thing left he could still save. The rancher reached the well clearing with his breath burning hot in his chest. The lantern swung in his hand, its flame bending wildly with every step. The boy and girl looked up the moment he appeared, both tense, both pale. The rancher dropped to his knees in front of them, pulling them close. We have to move, he whispered. Now. The girl touched his sleeve, voice trembling. Did he find you? He won't follow for a while, the rancher said. But we don't have long. The boy stared at him with wide, unblinking eyes. You fought him? Had to. The boy swallowed. He won't stop. Neither will I, the rancher said. The tension sat heavy between them, thick as the dark around the clearing. The rancher steadied his breathing and cupped the boy's face gently. Listen to me, he said. You have to tell me the truth now. I need to understand. All of it. The boy looked down, fingers twisting into the girl's shirt. I don't want to. You have to, the rancher said. Because people are dying around this. Because she died around this. The boy winced. The rancher softened his voice. Please, he whispered. Tell me how you know her name. The boy slowly met his eyes. I heard it, he said. Not from her. From them. Them? The ones who came to take us, the boy said. They talked about her. They said she tried to stop him. The rancher froze. Stop who? Ledger man. The girl hugged herself tight. She went into his office, she whispered. She yelled. We heard it through the wall. His office? The rancher asked. Back of the building, the boy said. The one with no windows. The one with the metal door. The rancher felt his pulse hammer harder. What did she say? The boy's voice thinned into a fragile thread. She said he couldn't keep doing this. She said she'd report him. She said she had proof. The girl nodded. She had papers. Names. Numbers. The rancher's breath hitched. They killed her because of that? We didn't see it, the boy said. But they talked after. Ledger man said she fell wrong. Said people believe anything if you say it soft enough. The rancher pressed his hand against the cold stones beside him, steadying the rage rising through him like heat. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because they don't talk about her, the boy said. Not in town. Not anywhere. The girl shook her head fast. They said your name too. Said you'd make noise if you knew. The rancher felt his throat tighten. How many heard? Enough to know her name, the boy whispered. Enough to hush each other. The rancher's eyes stung, but he blinked hard. And you, how did you get her lullaby? The boy hesitated. She sang it in the hall. When? The day before, the boy said. She passed where we were kept. She didn't see us. But we saw her. The rancher's breath left him in a broken rush. You saw her alive. The boy nodded. She was scared. The girl whispered, but brave too. The rancher bowed his head, grief and fury turning his insides raw. He took both children into his arms, pulling them close in a tight, trembling embrace. You should have told me, he whispered. We thought you'd send us back, the girl said. We didn't want to go. You're not going anywhere, the rancher said. Not ever again. The boy rested his forehead against the rancher's shoulder. We didn't know if you'd believe us. I do, the rancher said. I believe every word. A faint glow touched the edge of the trees, early dawn pressing through the branches, thin and pale. The rancher stood, lifting both children with him. We're done running, he whispered. Come on. The boy took his hand. The girl clung to his coat. Together they stepped out of the clearing, walking into the slow, rising light. The rancher carried the children through the thinning trees as dawn climbed slowly over the land. Pale light spread across the horizon, soft but steady, coloring the world in muted gold. The boy rested against his shoulder, eyes half open, while the girl clung to his coat, her small fingers twisted tight in the fabric. Every step felt like a step away from the night behind them, from the fear that had chased them through the woods. The rancher breathed deeper now, though the air still carried the weight of everything that had happened. We're almost there, he whispered. The girl lifted her head. Home? If you want it, the rancher said. The boy murmured softly, we do. The rancher tightened his arms around them. As they reached the open field near the ranch, the sound of hooves echoed in the distance. The rancher stiffened, shifting the children behind him. Riders approached, not the sheriff's men, not the ledger man. These riders wore long coats, badges glinting in the new light. Federal. Real law. The lead rider raised a hand. "Sir," he called, voice clear. "We're looking for the sheriff." The rancher exhaled, relief and caution tangled together. "He's out there," the rancher said. "By the old well. Hurt, but breathing." One of the riders nodded and turned his horse. "Take 2 with you," the leader ordered. "Bring him in." The men rode off. The leader remained. His gaze shifted to the children. "Those 2 belong with you?" The rancher stepped in front of them. "They do now." The man studied him for a long moment, then dismounted. "We've been tracking reports," he said. "Ledgers. Missing folks. False auctions. Kids disappearing." "Ledger man?" the rancher asked. "One and the same." The girl trembled. The rancher placed a steady hand on her back. "He's running," the leader said. "Took off when he saw us coming." Before he could say another word, the girl straightened. Fear gave way to something sharper. She pointed toward the barn. "He went that way," she said. "I saw him." The rancher turned, following her gaze. A shadow moved fast across the far end of the field. Ledger man sprinted toward the fence line, clutching his little black book tight against his chest. "Stay with the agent," the rancher said, lowering the children gently to the ground. "Don't move." The boy grabbed his hand. "Wait. I'll be right back," the rancher said. "I promise." The children held onto each other as the rancher ran. Ledger man reached the fence and tried to climb, but the old boards groaned under his weight. The rancher closed the distance fast. Ledger man looked over his shoulder, eyes wide with panic. "You don't know what you're doing," he shouted. "You think this ends with me? There are others." The rancher didn't slow. "Doesn't matter," he said. "It ends with you today." Ledger man swung a boot, trying to kick him back, but the rancher grabbed his coat and yanked him down. They hit the ground hard, dust flying around them. The little black book skidded across the dirt. The rancher reached for it, but Ledger man lunged, clawing at his arm. "Give that back." "You kept names," the rancher said. "You kept numbers." "I kept order," Ledger man snarled. "This town stays quiet because of me. People died because of you," the rancher snapped. Ledger man shoved him back. "Your wife should have stayed out of it." The words cut deep, sharper than any blade. The rancher's hands shook with a cold, rising fury. He grabbed Ledger man by the collar and pinned him to the ground. "She tried to save people," the rancher whispered. "Like I'm saving these kids." Ledger man struggled. "You can't protect them. Not from what's coming. Watch me." The rancher struck him once, hard. Ledger man went limp, groaning. Agents rushed in from behind, shouting commands as they cuffed him and lifted him to his feet. The rancher stood back, chest heaving. The leader approached. "You did good," he said. "We'll handle him from here." The rancher didn't answer. His eyes were already on the children. He walked back to them slowly. The boy stepped forward first, eyes soft. The girl held his hand. The rancher knelt and pulled them close. "You're safe now," he whispered. The boy leaned in. "She says thank you." The rancher's voice broke into a quiet, tired smile. "You don't have to protect me anymore." The new sun rose behind them as they walked toward the house, 3 shadows moving together, not alone anymore, filling a home that had waited far too long.